Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and this is going to be a special review because it's a review on the Grand Cherokee from my good friend and mentor, Brent. He's always asking me, Charlie, I've always driven Grand Cherokees, and when's the new one coming out, and what should I know about it? Well, Brent, here you go. The all-new 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Very similar to previous Jeep designs, but entirely reimagined and with a whole lot of good. So we're going to spend the next little while going around, and I'm going to tell Brent about the car. And hopefully you all, if you're interested in the Jeep, kind of find some useful information as well. So anyway, Brent, I know you've had a lot of Grand Cherokees, and Jeep's done a really good job at making this Grand Cherokee familiar to anyone who has had Grand Cherokees in the past. Familiar design. They didn't really screw anything up. They did add a new L model, which gets a third row, and then there's the new Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer as well, even larger. But this Jeep, the only thing that's kind of new and confusing about it is that there's so many trims. You can start all the way from the base Laredo, make it up to, what's above Summit, like Summit Reserve, I'm pretty sure. It gets pretty darn pricey, but this one is third from the bottom, just below halfway. It's a limited trim, as built, $57,000, which in today's day and age, yeah, a little bit more expensive than kind of what you might be used to spending, but car market's also pretty crazy right now. You have your power lift gate. Jeep's still giving you a good old spare tire. Might not be as fancy as the one you're running on out there as those other ones, but it'll get you to a safe recovery place if you do get a flat. Not too much in terms of storage back here, and it is a pretty high load height, so if you're loading things in, if you're carrying things, which again you should be pretty used to from your current Jeep, but something to consider, you got to make it past this lip and then also get things all the way in there. And since this is not the L, just your standard 2-row configuration, press the button right here, close the power lift gate. Second row, things start to get pretty interesting because you've got 2 screens. Now I'm sure if your kids all grown up and moved out of the house, you probably wouldn't have much need for these 2 screens. So you probably wouldn't pick this option, but just know that it is available. Let's see if we can fire them up without being in the front. Let me see. There we go. I think we have some power now. There we go. Check this out. Among all of these streaming services, you've got Netflix, Prime Video, IMDb TV, YouTube. In fact, we could probably bring up Daily Motor on here. A little bit of Daily Motor Inception. We gotta download it. See how long it takes to download. You can also plug in HDMI cable, USB, and headphones. So both kids or adults really back here have access to their own entertainment. And this screen's pretty high resolution as well. Look at that. The 4G connection in the Jeep has already installed our YouTube. Let's see. Is there a search option? Let's go. Limited touch functionality. You have to use the remote. Where are the remotes? Oh, look at this. It's a little Amazon TV remote. So I can actually go... Oh no, there's an update for my remote. Well, that's going to take 1 to 2 minutes. Let's look around some of the other things back here. Depending on who you have back here, maybe you got the grandkids or something, you can put this windscreen up, or sunscreen if you will, and keep the sun out of their eyes. It's probably a little dark in here for you to tell, but there's kind of some fake wood accents. That was a quick update. We use our remote now? Yeah, search. Daily Motor. Forgot the space. Will it still work? Hey, there we are. Look at this. Let's watch Chris Brower review the GLS 600 while we're sitting in the Jeep. Oh no, an ad. Can we have this go over the car's speakers? There's probably some way to do that, but I don't exactly know how. Oh, here we go. Gear icon, volume, inputs, apps, settings, mirroring. Oh, you can mirror your phone. Interesting. So there's a lot you can do back here. I don't know exactly how you get the audio to come through the car. I bet you do it from up there. So if I reach up and go media, and look how easy they make this thing to use. Sources, RSE1. Well, Well, I don't exactly know why that's not working, but you can see we do have YouTube here. We can use our remote and play and pause. So I don't know what sort of functionality you're going to find for that, Brent, but it is a cool party trick, and it is nice to have that. Get some more watch time for Daily Motor here. On top of that, you've got USB-Cs and USB-As. What I really appreciate that Chrysler, or really Stellantis, does is they put both C's and A's. So if you have newer cables, say you bought a newer iPhone, I don't know what iPhone you're running these days, but you could plug in a newer cable with the USB Type-C or the older cables. And it's going to be kind of hard for you to see this, but there's a wall-style outlet down here as well. And I actually used that on this trip to charge up my laptop. It's a big, powerful laptop, and I was able to charge it. And on top of that, people got heated seats back here as well. So plenty of room. You can recline these seats, can you? Yeah, you got to be able to. I would imagine you can recline these seats. I don't know where the control is, though, but I'm plenty comfortable. And if you look up, you can see a panoramic sunroof. I'm sure you'd want that. Now, this one we're running is rocking the base 3.6-liter V6 engine. And honestly, I think that's enough for you. I mean, unless you're really looking to make a scene, there's not too much reason to step up to the V8. This one has plenty of horsepower, plenty of grunt, and at no point this weekend have we ever felt like we've been lacking in power. Nothing too fancy getting up here, but honestly, it's a really big step up from previous Jeeps. I got some, again, fake kind of wood grain in the wheel there. And look at all these screens. If you count all the screens in this car, there are 6. 1 up front here, 2, because this is a screen, 3, 4 passenger screen right here. Look at that. The passenger can do things like have their own HDMI input or control the audio, or even look at the cameras in the car. So that's pretty neat. And then back there you've got 5 and 6, which does lead me to a little bit of a concern with this car, and why you might want to just be wary of all this tech if you're going to own this for a long time. If maybe you want this Jeep to last you another 5 years or so, is there's a lot of technology in here, which is, it's cool, it's fancy, it's functional, it adds to the user experience, but you gotta wonder how all of that's going to hold up, and if after a while you're going to be having to do warranty on this thing, honestly. So that is something to keep in mind, but it does make for some really cool stuff. I mean, you've got all of this tech in the middle, you've got your navigation, that's not too surprising, but you've got all your climate controls as well, both physically down here as well as in the screen. And if you so choose to use Apple Carplay, which can add a lot of functionality, you can turn that on there. You can connect wirelessly and have your calls, you can have your media, your music, your Waze navigation, all sorts of different apps right there on the screen. However, it has been glitchy for us. So both myself and my colleagues, when trying to use it, especially wirelessly, you can see it's not coming up. So even though my phone is connected and within range, it's having issue bringing that up there. So again, lots of cool tech, but you might have issues with it always working. Other than that, the controls are really quite straightforward in here. You can get into this car and be very familiar with how everything works. All the instrumentation is very comfortable, and they made it straightforward. They kept physical climate controls. We've got a physical volume now, which is not something you see in all new cars. Up here you have a layout for various controls that you may or may not use, things like active lane keeping, turning on and off that passenger screen. And then in the front display, you've got all sorts of different information you might want to know. I mean, ultimately, the main thing you need to just know is how fast you're going, but you've got temperature. You also have tire pressure. As you can see, I'm quite low right now. We're running at 11 degrees Fahrenheit, so Harbor Springs is cold right now this time of year, and our tire pressures are low because of that. I'll probably have to throw some air in there before we drive back home. There's much more information you could ever need in here. You've got your trip computers, you've got fuel economy, statistics to show you how your all-wheel drive system's working. It's up to you. If you really think you're going to benefit from having the fancy screen up there, then by all means, option it out. But I would be totally fine with a more basic model that just tells me how fast I'm going and maybe my tire pressures, and then that's it. This limited trim, despite not being a very high up trim at all, you do still get heated and ventilated seats. It's an option, but you can get them. So I've got the heat going right now, obviously, but if I were warm, I could blast cold air right at my bottom. The wheel tilts and telescopes. I'm sure yours does as well. This one's got a 9-speaker Alpine audio system. I do believe it's an upgrade. I don't find it to be particularly strong. There's something weird with the tuning. There's way too much bass, and even though it has a way to turn the fake surround settings off, the music doesn't sound true to recording, and there are elements of your songs you might expect to come out that you don't quite hear. So if you're not going to be listening to a ton of music, don't bother stepping up to the Alpine audio system. It's only okay. One feature I do appreciate is having wireless device charging. So you push this little flap open, and in there you do have a place where you can set your phone and just have it charge up, which is really nice, not having to plug it into a cable if you're driving around a lot. On top of that, you again have 2 USB-A's and 2 USB-C's, so you can plug in all of your devices, anything you might need to power, all right there. So for the actual driving experience of the Jeep, I really, really like it. Both myself and all my colleagues, my brother Nathan, we've all enjoyed driving this thing. The steering's heavy, but it makes it feel solid. My fiance Alyssa drove it for a little bit and commented on how it feels kind of tanky, is how she likes to describe it. Very, very solid feeling. And being a Grand Cherokee owner yourself, I think you're going to appreciate that sort of feel. We did take it through some snowy 2-track type roads, and it handled it with grace. Very capable. And there's a lot of ground clearance on this, and this one doesn't have the optional air suspension. If you do get that optional air suspension, you'll notice a little bit smoother ride, even though this ride is very smooth as well. But you can also raise and lower the vehicle, so you can lower it a bit for fuel economy on the highway, and then raise it up a little bit for ground clearance. But you'd be totally fine with this standard suspension as well. Honestly, it rides really smooth. I think Jeep really nailed it with kind of the luxury aspect of this truck. And it would be cool to drive a Laredo, just a more basic one that's costs about $40,000, and see how that drives, because I'd imagine it would still drive pretty well. Like I said, the steering's a little heavy, but it's nicely weighted, I think. You do have adaptive cruise control, but I also appreciate how Chrysler and Jeep give you an option to just use standard cruise control by pressing this button. It cruises really quietly on the highway. We had a really comfortable time coming up north yesterday, and it drives well around the city too. The only thing is you're not going to get fantastic fuel economy. I'm sure you're kind of used to that already, but when we do an actual fuel economy test, I'll let you know what we get. But even though EPA says 26 on the highway, I think unless you're doing right around 70 miles per hour, then you're not gonna quite see those numbers. So, but if fuel economy is something that you do want to prioritize in your next vehicle, they do have a plug-in hybrid version of this Jeep. It's the 4xe. Technically it's 4xe, but it's pronounced 4xe. That one can do about 20 to 25 miles on electric-only driving. You charge it up at home just with a normal wall-style outlet. That would be a pretty cool option. That's probably how I would go, although I would have to look at the pricing. I'm sure it's a good bit more than just getting the Space V6. So final thoughts on the new Grand Cherokee. Brent, if you're ready to upgrade, this is a really good option. I wouldn't steer you wrong. I hope you would think. And I just think Jeeps did a really cool job with this. They really thought everything through. It's a functional interior. It's a nice car to drive. The only things I'd be a little bit hesitant on is the technology. I would probably choose to get one with as little of tech as possible. If you wanted to lease, then you could maybe roll the dice a little bit more. But if you're going to be getting the digital gauge cluster, the big digital screen right here, all the other stuff, there's just more possibility of it breaking. But yeah, other than that, Jeep did a really good job, and I know you've been waiting a while for them to come out with a new one, and here it is. So I see no reason why you shouldn't rush out and put in an order. And this red paint on this one is pretty darn neat as well. I've always appreciated Jeep's color palette. So there you go, Brent. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you end up picking one up. I hope you found this useful, and for any of you else who are watching who are not named Brent, then hopefully you found it useful as well. We will have plenty of other content. I know Christopher Brower has a DM test drive on this Jeep as well, and all of our other good stuff. But thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, Brent, for watching, and hopefully you found this helpful. Let me know what you end up doing, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie with Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.